Hi again. Welcome back to Next Step Career Corner, where we're going to talk about leadership, career challenges, anything that can help us grow as leaders and hardworking people. So, my name is Stephanie Renk. I am your host, and I have background in career coaching. And I didn't start there. I started as administrative assistant. And so today I really want to talk about taking a moment to think about your career and the awesome steps that bring you to where you're at today. Hopefully, a good thing. So sometimes we think success is hitting all of our goals. Sometimes we think that it's about pushing harder. But generally, it's the relationships we have, it's what we learn in a role. And it really, it's really important to sit back and think about, where did I come from? How far have I come? Right. So let's connect the dots. Let's think about who we are. Let's think about where we started. So in 2009, I graduated from college, and college, boy, I was 18. I think I graduated at 23 because it took me 5 years, and I grew a lot as a person. First, breaking out from being a child in my parents' home to living on my own to living with strangers in a little three-bedroom duplex, living on my own again as an individual after I graduated, dating. I mean, gosh, that was crazy and wild. And so there was so much for me to learn. I knew I was hardworking. I was an A B student. I really really wanted a job, and that was my thing. I was going to college to get a job. That was the first goal, right? That is all I wanted to do before anything else in my life. So let's think about where you started, right? Maybe you left right after high school and started your career. And around here in Idaho, there are so many careers that a person could go into, and they can skip the college route, right? I love education. I even tell my 11-year-old son, I love school. Let's do homework together. Let's study. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it all. But I got out of college and I didn't have a job lined up. So I was working part time. I worked for the startup that went under. I really, really struggled those first 6, 7, 8 months until I got a phone call. And this professor at the university knew me because I had worked at a computer lab. And it was an easy gig. I just sat at the computer lab. I helped students with their computer issues, with their printer issues, and I studied. But these professors would come in and talk to their students, and so they got to know me. And this guy, his name is Scott, he used to tease me all the time, like almost to the point where, like, is he joking or is he being mean? Right? You just never knew with Scott. And so, you know, I knew that, I mean, I worked there for 4 or 5 years, and I get this call from him, and he tells me, he's like, "Hey, uh, I have this new grant program started, and I thought you might be interested in an admin role." And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely. Tell me more." And it was Veterans Upward Bound, which is a federally funded grant that is focused on helping military servicemen and veterans transition from military service to post-secondary education. So first they had to hire the director, then they had to hire the educational coordinator, and then they hired me. So I started in December. So September, October, I knew I had a job coming, but I had to wait. I had to wait. I had to wait. I had to wait. Then I finally was interviewed by these two staff members, and I started randomly, like December 9th. It was a random Monday. Uh, and we were in this building that was ancient. There was another course in this room behind my desk, and so students would come in and cross my desk, and then my veterans or my military guys would come in, and I'd send them down this hall. It was crazy. And then we moved into a new bed. Like, I think we moved like 3 or 4 times. It was crazy. But it was a brand new program. And what was great is I got to start it from the ground up. So there was a grant written. We already had our standards listed out, but how to track them. And so I built checklists, I built spreadsheets, I built a filing system. And then I worked with the executive director and the educational coordinator on building programs. So we set up a math course and we had a writing course and I had a basic computer course. I mean, ground up, right? And so we had to serve 125 individuals by July of the next year. And so we really had 6 months to pull this off. It was wild. So I have this role, and then I get engaged, and my husband lands a job in Boston. And so I was able to give like a 3 month notice, and I trained the person taking over for me, my successor. And then I moved to Boston, and there I was again. I got married, went on my honeymoon, came back, no job. Like, okay, well, I'm an admin. So I mean, Boston is a big area, so I flooded the market with my resume. And I ended up at UMass Medical School as an executive assistant for the chancellor. And it was funny during the interview process because a couple of red flags came up in my background check. One of them was that startup that no longer existed. They couldn't find it, so they couldn't verify that it was real. And then a title didn't match because in the computer lab, I had taken on a manager role, but they didn't elevate me in the back end because they didn't want to pay me a manager level. And so I did the responsibilities and I claimed it, and my recommendation, my reference would have confirmed it. But I just remember the interviewer, just my manager, hey, there's a couple red flags. Can you explain it? Yes, this and this. Okay. And I started. And that was really neat because, I'm in my mid 20s by this point, and I was an admin, and so I was taking care of the chancellor, was president level of the university, and it was a big deal. I mean, he met with um, gosh, he met with people from the government. He met with presidents and CEOs of other companies, hospitals. I mean, we had the governor on campus at one point. It was very high end, and so I had to become a gatekeeper. So instead of doors wide open, like everybody come and learn about our program, I then had to learn to protect him and his schedule. And so I became a gatekeeper. And so that became huge. I also learned budgeting. So I'd done a little bit of budgeting in the veterans program, and then I did budgeting here. And I actually helped them identify some things that were duplicated and a waste of expenses. And so we saved a lot of money. So that's what I learned from there. And then things happened. I had a kid, and I wanted to be closer, and so I ended up getting another administrative job at Biogen. Doing, I was working for an SVP of medical affairs basically, and I learned to work with a team. So when I was at the chancellor's office, it was just me in the chancellor's office, and then there was a bunch of executive assistants for all of the different executive vice chancellors. But this time, I had the SVP and a bunch of VPs and a bunch of directors. And so, some of these admins had 8 to 10 people that they were managing. And then sometimes we had to get all of the calendars together. But it was there that I got to really know the department. And then that led to a promotion where I joined the grants management and sponsorship team and did some work there. And what was cool about that job is I got to implement a new application process, so a new tool. And so I got to work with IT and I got to work with the consultants, and it was really, really fun. So, you know, I'm having a good time. And then we decided to move home, and they did not want remote employees. And so I left and came home and got my MBA program. And it was during this program that the idea for Next Steps came alive. I realized that career services was an industry. I wanted to help people. I had no problem being my own business owner, my own boss. So I took that chance. And then the rest is history, right? I got certified. I learned a lot about the job search, different aspects of it. And so it was such an interesting way to just see how I learned things and grew in those areas. And every place I went, I learned. And most of it was relationships. Most of it was how to handle people. Confidentiality. I had to learn how to deal with people's emotions. I would do things and then realize I was stepping on other admins' toes, and wasn't in my intention to do that. And so having those upfront conversations about it, apologizing when I needed to, listening to feedback and then deciding what to do, even if it was against the feedback. Like it was interesting. And I'll never forget my last manager when we were doing this implementation. She told me, like, you get too much in the weeds. Like when you're explaining things, you have to bring it up to here, like at a higher level, a 30,000-foot view versus, all the technical details. And I'll never forget that because it made me realize my audience is different. And so with resume writers, I can get in the nitty gritty and we can talk about punctuations and verbiage and nouns and all of the fun things that go into resume writing. But when I'm talking to my clients, I don't have to get at that level. I have to talk to them about their branding, right? What are we trying to get at? I will do the tactical things to get to that branding, but they don't need to know about periods and semicolons and all of the fun things. So, you go through just seeing all of the things you've learned. And honestly, when I look back at my career, I just see how far I've come in the last 20 years, to be honest, because I've learned so much from previous managers. My first manager, I'll never forget, I messed up. There was like this HR thing. I messed it up, said too much, and he came back and it ruined the whole process. Like we had to start all over. It was something I said. And he just told me, he's like, hey, it's okay. It's a learning experience. Every mistake is a learning experience. And from that, I really took that to heart. So every time I do mess up, sometimes I cry and I'm embarrassed and totally mortified, but I can pick myself up and go, it's a learning opportunity and I'll never allow it to happen again. Right. And that's all we can do. So think back to your own experiences. What did you learn at every role? I was just talking to a client yesterday or this morning where the history was just all over the place and he was worried about how it was going to look jumping all around. And, it's like, well, what story are we trying to tell? And then you pick out the elements. Do the same thing. Reflect back on your career and think about each job where you learned something. And then what's the most important so you can build your pathway. So sometimes reflection can be a conversation, right? You can go back and have a conversation with somebody about maybe your resume. And so you're thinking about your history and the accomplishments because that's what resume writers will ask you for. And then sometimes it could just be your people skills. And I will say that's a very big thing for leaders. Yeah, it's great tactically, you can do your job, but once you start managing people or initiatives, what are your people skills? What do they look like? And so, how can you reflect? So, again, talking about it, right? Writing your resume, writing your profile, writing your bio. You could think about things. Sometimes it's journaling. I love a good journal, right? Good prompt. Go down that. Sometimes it's looking back on your history. When I met my husband, I remember him having a spreadsheet and I don't think he's updated it since then, but he had every title he had the dates, and he had how much money he made. And so he could see his salary growth over the last X amount of years. I forget at this time. And I thought that was pretty cool. I can tell you, I started at $15 an hour, and I was making 30,000 a year, and I was happy as can be. I could not believe my luck. I had my own apartment. I could pay for my own bills. It was wonderful. So maybe it's the title, maybe it's salary, maybe it's skill sets that you've you've learned. Also, what energizes you? I learned very quickly. I love initiatives. I love having something that's timed, that has deadlines, that has milestones and goals, and I just love to hit those when I'm working on an initiative. So that's where I struggle now in my own business. There is nothing that will stop me from doing something later, right? I can push things off because I'm the one managing it. But if I promise a client I'll have it, then I have a deadline and I'll develop it and I'll produce it. So I have found that sometimes being on my own, it's hard because I'll have initiatives and projects and things that I want to work on that just get deprioritized because I have client work. So something I've learned. My role at Park, that's really fun because we have staff meetings and we check in and we have deadlines and I owe my boss something. And so I have learned that having that collaboration is helpful for me. But I love my business. I can't imagine stepping away from my business and helping my clients. And so, To me, the bottom line is as long as I'm helping people, that's that's the best part. I really try to walk with my clients all the way to the job offer. I mean, some people just fall off my calendar because of timing, or maybe they don't need as much assistance, or they can do it on their own, and that's great. But for me, man, when I have that client that texts me and I got an offer, um, it's the best thing. So if I continue with this is it's just everything. I can't imagine anything better, and that's why I'm at part two, because I can see the members enjoying the learnings, and when I attend and can see the results of it, it's great, right? I absolutely love that. So break it down. What worked in your history? What did you learn? What skills did you obtain? Some folks have a master resume where it's pages and pages and pages of responsibilities and accomplishments and metrics and salary and titles and all of the things. I think that's great. I don't have one of those. I'd have to piece my resume together to have a master resume. And gosh, I couldn't even remember all the titles I had. But think back. What are you most proud of in your career? Maybe that's part of your brand. What disruptions in your life have shaped you? My cancer stuff, which I talked about on my last episode, holy smokes, that changed everything for me. What happened in your career? Where are you compromising your values? I've heard it over and over. I'll have these clients that come in and they're just not fulfilled anymore. The job isn't what it was supposed to be. That's okay. Let's find you something else, right? I will say keep the job. In this current market, you want to keep your job. You want to keep getting paid. But let's see where you can go from there, right? Sometimes values aren't aligning and it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your manager. Maybe it does, but most of the time it's just you're not aligned with what you care about most. So let's figure that out. So really spend time reflecting. Talk about your career with a coach. Talk about your career with a peer or a mentor, right? Go back and see what you're most proud of. Take one day a week and journal. What did you learn this week? What did you overcome this week? What challenges did you overcome, right? And really highlight those little soft skills too, right? Some people think that learning a new skill has to be a hard skill. You learned a new program, right? You finished training. It could be soft skills too. Maybe you had a difficult conversation with an employee or a colleague or a leader, and maybe you cried, but you learned something from it. You just don't know. So think about it every week. What did you learn this week? What did you overcome? We all have disruptions. And then let me know. Post about it, right? Share your knowledge with others. Comment on this episode. I'd love to hear what you overcame this week, or what you learned, or what you most valued from a previous role, your current role. What do you want in your future, right? So thank you. I know this is a shorter episode than most, but I won't go on and on because I know that it's hard right now. The job market is really, really tough. There's not a lot of jobs out there. Getting through applicant tracking systems, getting through AI, it is difficult. So for all of you who are searching and unemployed, reach out to these professionals. Find a career coach that you trust. Find a resume writer that you like and talk to them about these things. That's what we're here for. It is tough. And if you're in a role that you hate, tough it out as much as you can. Put those applications out there and take it one day at a time, right? And write, journal, put it down what you've overcome, because you can do this. So if this episode has resonated with you, please subscribe and share it with a friend who might need to hear it today. You can start anywhere in your career and you can grow, and you just never know. You never know where it's going to take you. And leadership, it isn't about perfection, it's about being personal. So share your stories, mentor younger generations, teach them all that you know, because it's tough out there and we got to be in it together, right? So please subscribe, please share. Let me know what you've learned today, and keep at it. It's a tough market, but we're going to get through. Take care, everybody.